Hey, yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Smart TCG, and today I'm going to be going over the standings of the biggest Pokemon TCG online tournament of all time, the Smart Series number 3. This event had over 1,500 players compete, and I'm excited to be going over what happened at this tournament. If you're interested in the link to the deck lists and decks as well, you can click the top link that is going to be in the description. But with that being said, let's hop right into it here. So hopping into it, we have Dragapult that ended up winning the tournament. Umbermet was able to take down the event with a variant of Dragapult that looks pretty similar to the one that Tord Reklev used to get top 4 at the most recent North American International Championships. However, there is a brand new card that was included in this deck, which is going to be Hilda. Hilda reads, you get to search your deck for an evolution Pokemon and an energy card and put it into your hand. This works absolutely phenomenally in a Dragapult deck, as you're going to be able to search your deck for a Dracloak or a Dragapult and then find that energy as well. Cards like the Neo Upper Energy, as you're only allowed to have one in your deck, can sometimes be relatively difficult to find, so having that Hilda really boosts the consistency of this deck. Next up here, at second place, we have quite an interesting Ogerpon box deck. We have the deck that was able to get second place by the Hubs 901, and this is the deck. It is Ogre Mask, Ogre Box, going 14-3, only losing to Dragapult in the finals. Almost got there to take down the tournament. Got very, very close in the games. If you're interested in watching some of that, check out the second link that'll be in the description to the live stream of this event. This deck was really, really fun to watch. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with it. You have the Ogerpons, you have the Teal Mask for the consistency, Wellspring to be able to hit those early game torrential pumps and oftentimes take over games. Then you also have Cornerstone, which can wall quite a few decks out in the standard format. And you have so many different things that you can attack with. You also have access to the Lilius Clefairy. You can attack with the Mew. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this deck. And it was really, really fun to watch, and I think has a lot of potential moving forward. Maybe this is the best way to play Parabox in the future. I know that some people kind of gave up on the Noctowl variant, but maybe this one is a little bit better moving forward. Once again, congratulations to the Hubs for getting second place. Next up here, we have Noah, who was playing Dragapult Dusknoir here. Let's pull up their deck. Pretty standard Dragapult list. Looks like they did also decide to include the Hilda, so it seems like Hilda is becoming a staple card in these Dragapult decks. Also have access to the Latias as well for that free retreat is quite nice. Looks like no Air Balloon, since you have access to the Latias here, 1 Jamming Tower 2. So both the Dragapult lists that saw success here in the top 4 players did decide to play the Jamming Tower. So yeah, pretty cool to see. Next up here, we have Justin Neudorf. Justin Neudorf was able to get top 4 at this tournament. This was the lone Charizard that ended up getting top 4, and it is a pretty, I would say, vanilla build, very similar to the one that John Roberts used to get top 32 at the most recent Milwaukee Regional Championships, and we have seen this deck show up in online tournaments as well. This is pretty much a Dusknoir deck. You try and get multiple Dusclopses and Dusknoirs onto the board, you pop multiple of them, and then use the Charizard to be able to sweep the opponent's board state. So this deck is actually pretty cool when it gets going. In my opinion, just sometimes runs into consistency issues, which is why I really like the 2 Tatsugiri in this deck. Next up here, we have the lone Joltik box that made it into top 8. We have Steven Varesco here, able to go 12-2-1, falling in top 8 to the Terra box deck, specifically because of Cornerstone. Cornerstone made it very, very difficult for Steven to be able to win in that matchup. But here is the list that Steven ended up playing. Chose to play the Brave Bengal. You can use the Brave Bengal to put it onto Genesect to activate that Ace Nullifier. You also can put it onto the Galvantula as well to able to put that Pokemon in range of actually being able to one-shot things like Vezendipity. Latias as well, being able to hit 210 is quite nice. Also has the Air Balloon in this deck as well, a brand new card that released from Black Bolt and White Flare. Also the one of Judge, which is kind of surprising. I guess you can find it with things like Pokegear. I'm not 100% sure why they ended up playing this card. Maybe if they fell behind, they have just, some type of comeback option, or maybe early game they want to use it. This was definitely something that was very interesting to see in this list. And no Psychic Energy. Looks like they opted to not play the Clefairy, ended up just playing other cards instead. Gave this Joltik box deck a little bit more consistency and versatility as well. So congratulations to Steven for getting top this tournament. Next up here, we have the lone Typhlosion that made it into top 8. We have Bunny here, who was able to go on a fantastic run with, in my opinion, a pretty cool deck right now. We have the Typhlosion Tricoloque deck with that Recon Directive, allowing you to draw through your deck, keep the Typhlosion engine running. And this deck is really, really fun to play as it does gain the brand new Brave Bengal, which allows you to be able to take one-hit KOs on some Pokemon that you weren't able to in the previous format. So gaining access to Brave Bengal really unlocks this deck. One of the problems it sometimes runs into is the consistency, but when you get it going, it has a lot of potential. And I like this list. Congratulations to Bunny on getting top 8. Next up here, we have Summit. Summit here ended up playing the Dragapult Dusknoir build. Looks actually identical to the list that Noah used. I believe they ended up playing the same 60. I think they're friends or something like that. So congratulations to Summit as well for getting top cut with Dragapult. Multiple Dusknoir decks ended up seeing success. A couple of the Dragapults and then also Charizard as well. Speaking of Charizard, we have a couple of Charizards coming up here. We have Green Gerbil 18, which ended up playing the Charizard Pidgeot build. It seems very similar to the one that Gabriel Fernandez used to win the North American International Championships in the senior division. However, did decide to include that Miss Energy and also the Hilda as well. Next up here, we have another Charizard here from Michael. Michael ended up playing the Tubrock scouting list with Picnic Basket. Looks like they also included the Mist Energy as well. The Chi-Yu has been making its way into a lot of Charizard decks to really help out in that Golden Go matchup. So congrats to Michael on getting top 16. Next up, we have Grant Manley. Grant is a very well-known and successful player as well. A lot of well-known and successful players actually ended up making it into the top 32. So, really cool to see that. And there were plenty of other very successful players, known players, for example, like Pedro Torres and others who were able to see success as well. But this is going to be the list that Grant Manley used to make top 16. It is just standard Gardevoir for the most part, except there's a couple interesting tech cards. You have access to the Fluttermane with that Hex Hurl, so you can spread damage onto the board, which then sets up the Technical Machine, the Evolution. And that's pretty much it. I think those are kind of the spicy cards that they decided to include. Everything else feels relatively standard. You have access to that Cleffa, which is quite nice with that Grasping Draw. So you kind of have the option to either use the Arven to then use the TM Evolution, or if your hand doesn't necessarily have the Arven, you could then go into the Cleffa and use that Grasping Draw. Next up here, we have Frogger 27. This was one of the Ho-Oh Armarouge decks that did well. Now, this event was supposed to have Luminous Energy legal, however, or not Luminous Energy, Prism Energy legal, but since Prism Energy was banned for a few days for them to work on it at the recording of this video, Luminous Energy was the only type of energy that they could actually play. So that's the reason as to why you're going to see quite a few decks here that normally would want to play Prism Energy, but ended up playing the Luminous Energy just because the Prism Energy is glitched at the moment. So this is the list that Frogger ended up playing here. Congratulations to them. Really, really cool deck here. And I'm not surprised to see Ho-Oh seeing some success. So it is the Ho-Oh with the Armarouge. However, you do have access to the Reshiram now. Gives yourself some one-shot potential in certain situations. You have access to the Durant, which is a really cool card. Helps out against the Grimmsnarl matchup. And you have so many different attackers. It's kind of hard to talk about every single one. But when the Prism Energy gets fixed, then Luminous Energy will go out of the deck and Prism Energy will go in as, pretty much in most situations, the Prism Energy is just, better. So yeah, shout out here to Frogger27 for getting top 16. Ended up 11-1, a fantastic record. Next up, we have ZZ Wug here, who played Charizard Pidgeot. Looks like another very standard Charizard build with the Mist Energy Picnic Basket, very similar to the one that Gabriel Fernandez used. So very, very similar to that. Next up, we have Kawashi here with the Grimmsnarl. One of the few Grimmsnarls that ended up doing well here. Looks like they ended up playing the Tatsuguri and the Budew. Access to the Air Balloon and Blood Moon Ursaluna. Giving yourself access to the Blood Moon Ursaluna is really, really nice because now if you start it, you have access to Air Balloon, so you can actually move it around. So that's a big reason as to why we're seeing the Blood Moon kind of go back in this deck, because it's much less of a liability because you have access to Air Balloon. So yeah, that was the Grimmsnarl that ended up making it into top 16. There was one other one that made it into ASIM we'll go over shortly here. But next up, we have XOXO Chem Girl, who was playing Joltik Box. Looks like this Joltik Box variant did have a couple of stadiums, the Jamming Tower, the Team Rocket's Watchtower, and also the Clefairy as well, with the Psychic Energies chose to play the Vitality Band, Team Rocket's Petrol, which is a pretty interesting card I've seen in some lists in the past of Joltik Box. So congratulations to Chem Girl in top 16. Next up, we have the one Crustle that made it into a symmetrical cut here, ended up losing to Dragapult Dusknoir, and it is Crustle with Iron Thorns and also Cornerstone. This is kind of the new stall deck that has seen some success. It's a deck that can see a ton of success if you play against the right matchups, but if you don't play against the right matchups, then your deck can feel relatively weak, but it has a lot of potential based off the metagame that it is being put into. So looks like they did end up playing the Cornerstone and the Iron Thorns. Some lists are just playing the Crustle Monkey Dory, but this list seems to have a lot more stuff. You got the Pokevital, got an Energy Switch as well. You have the Practice Studio too. So some pretty interesting cards in this list to see. And I'm curious to see if people are going to try and tech this Crustle deck out of the format because it is showing up. Actually, there is another deck here that made it into ASIM. There was only one in top 16, but there was actually one that also made it into ASIM. I remember they both lost when I was keeping up with them in the tournament in Asymmetrical. But let's go over All Out Blitzel. James Kowalski, a fellow content creator, nice person, and shout out to them for getting to the top cut with this deck. Unfortunately, losing in Asymmetrical here. This is going to be the Noctowl Raging Bolt with the Budu. Also chose to play Cornerstone as well. Yeah, pretty interesting list here to see that Itchy Pollen. I've been starting to see more Raging Bolt lists with that Budu Itchy Pollen, which I think is pretty interesting. Pretty good on that first turn, and then going into a huge Prime Catcher turn on that next turn to kind of take over the game. Is a pretty cool combination. And we also see the Cornerstone as well, a card that's been starting to creep its way back in the standard format, especially for that Gold and Go matchup. Next up here, we have the other Crustle that ended up making it into top cut here. We have a different variant here, as we do see no Iron Thorns, just the Cornerstone. Once again, Cornerstone helps out versus the Dango matchup, as Dango lists are currently not really playing any tech cards for it. So if you get a Cornerstone up, you can pretty much sweep them, especially with things like Pokevital. They can even use things, like the Adrenabrain to slowly chip away at this. So just kind of becomes an auto win there. So another Crustle deck was able to see success. Next up, we have Sanjay here. Sanjay's another player who has consistently made it into day 2 of tournaments. Strong player, and they ended up playing the Eevee Box deck here with the 2 Flare and 1 Leafeon. Looks like they also played Wellspring Mass Ogerpon. That's a pretty interesting card to see in this deck. I think just people in general are kind of not really respecting this Wellspring, which is making Wellspring a lot more of a viable card. We see that the choice of one of supporters they use are like the 1 Briar, the 1 Turo, and the 1 Cyrano. Some people like the Brock Scouting, some people like the Jock. I think Cyrano is pretty good overall. And then also 1 Gravity Mountain as well to reduce the HP of those high HP stage 2 decks, which sometimes can be difficult to knock out. Next up, we have Ricardo. Ricardo was the other Grimmsnarl that made it into Asymmetrical here. Let's take a look at their list. Looks pretty similar to the one that was played from the other person who made top cut here. Not really a whole lot to say. This list, though, did play Tatsuguri and also Budu, so it seems like people are choosing to play both of those cards in the deck. Next up, we have Mike here, ended up going 10-3 with the Dragapult Charizard. They also decided to play the Chiyu. So yeah, a lot of Chiyus right now because they're trying to deal with the Gold and Go matchup. Making sure that you have a chance against Gold and Go is really, really important, and this card definitely swings it in Zard deck's favors if you're able to get it off. Next up here, we have another a Dragapult Charizard. Looks like they did also decide to play the Chiyu. Chose to play Prime Catcher. I really like Prime Catcher right now. It really helps out against those Mind Bend situations where decks will try and use the Mind Bend against you. Having access to Prime Catcher just to work around that is really, really powerful. So shout out to Joa for choosing to play that, because I think that card is pretty good. Next up here, we have Matt Bridges. Matt Bridges ended up playing Joltik Box, another Joltik here. This one also chose not to play Clefairy, which is pretty interesting, seeing people cut the Clefairy out of the deck in favor of more tech cards and consistency overall. Looks like they opted to play double Gravity Mountain as well. Next up, we have My Sapling. My Sapling ended up playing Gardevoir here. Looks like they ended up playing the TM Devolution, the TM Turbo Energize, and also the Evo as well. So lots of TMs in this deck. No Drifloon, though. 1 Bravery Charm and 4 Monkey Dory. Next up here, we have the last player who ended up making it into Asymmetrical cut. We have another Ethan's Typhlosion with the Dracloak engine here. Looks like they also opted to play the Itchy Pollen, which is pretty interesting to see this card being played in this deck. 1 Picnic Basket to try and help out versus those Dragapult and Grimmsnarl decks. Just any spread deck being able to use this it can definitely be a difference maker in certain situations. But yeah, that is going to be Asymmetrical cut. We'll just kind of scroll through and see if there's any other interesting decks that ended up making it into top 32. Quite a few Goldango were played at this tournament, but it was pretty teched for. Just kind of seeing if there were any other notable players that ended up seeing success here. I know that Nathan O, who was the winner of the very first Smart Series tournament, ended up getting top 64. Crazy that 9-3 is only enough for top 64, which is, pretty crazy. Just, showing how big these tournaments are going. There was an interesting deck that I wanted to show you guys that Pedro Eugenio Torres plays. One of the best players of all time, recent international champion. Back, pre-COVID, has won multiple regionals and just overall a fantastic player. I believe won OCIC back in 2017, and then I think won Warsaw Regional Championships a couple of years ago. So just, consistently seeing lots of success. Got top 4 Worlds in 2018 as well. Can't forget that. So one of the best players we have ever seen. Ended up going 7-3 drop with this really interesting Zoroark deck here. And as you can see, there are 7 Zoras in this deck and 7 Zoroarks as well. So really cool to see this build of the deck, because technically ends Zorua and regular Zorua are technically different cards. So that's why you're able to play, it feels like extra Zoruas. Technically, they're different cards, so you're able to play more of those. So it's kind of interesting. Seeing the Hilda as well, you can use the Ignition Energy to potentially power up things like the Foul Play or the Illusory Hijacking as well, which does 60 damage for each of your opponent's EX and V Pokemon in play. This is just a sick deck overall. Really cool to see Pedro play this deck. Ended up losing to a Crustle, which is unfortunate. Also lost to a Golden Go and a Flareon Noctowl. But overall, a great effort and one of the coolest decks that I saw. Anyways, taking a look at the metagame here, just, kind of wanted to go over this. We saw Golden Go end up being the most played deck. However, it didn't necessarily have a great run. Only 47.75 win percentage. Now, to be brutally honest about this, Golden Go is kind of the deck that has seen a big resurgence, and I think that the win rate might be this low because, one, people are over-teching for it right now, and maybe there's a lot of people who haven't really, I would say, necessarily tested the deck a whole lot that are kind of trying to figure out the deck. So there's a potential that, a lot of players were losing games simply because they didn't necessarily know exactly how to play, some of the matchups, because this deck, kind of just, I feel like, came right back up, like, onto the scene once we got, things like the Genesect. So people are, potentially trying to learn it, as it's a significantly different deck than the ones with, the Dracloak, right? The deck has the Genesect, you got, multiple air balloons as well. It just, flows a little differently. So maybe that's the reason as to why I didn't do as well, is because people are still kind of learning it. Next up, we got Raging Bolt here. No surprise, 8.97%, 46% win rate. A lot of hate right now around Bolt. There's a lot of decks that are, it feels like prepared for it. You got Ethan's Typhlosion, the Gardevoir variants. You're not as good into Grimmsnarl, I feel like, as you used to be, because they have access to the Bloodmoon Saluna, which can be kind of tricky. Next up here, we got Grimmsnarl, 53% win rate. For having such a good win rate, there weren't necessarily a ton in Top Cut. There were some that were in like 1632, but not necessarily a ton that made it into top 8. So yeah. Next up, we have Dragapult Charizard, 47% win rate. About anything from 47 to 50% is pretty average, I feel like, overall. Next up, we have Gardevoir Jellicent. Gardevoir Jellicent really struggled. I know that in my tier list I kind of spoke about Gardevoir Jellicent and how I thought the regular variant of Gardevoir was better, and it seemed to be that I was proven correct here, starting off with Gardevoir Jellicent having one of the worst win rates out of the most popular decks in the room. Next up, we have Charizard Pidgeot. Ended up having a pretty good event, 51% win rate. We have regular Gardevoir, 49.90. The ties ended up dragging it down a little bit. Technically, it won more than it lost. We have Flareon Noctowl here, 42% win rate. Definitely struggled overall. Ethan's Typhlosion, 52%. Pretty cool to see this deck seeing success. I know that I necessarily wasn't too confident in it, and I know that some other people as well had concerns about the consistency. But if you are able to get it going, it definitely has some pretty decent matchups. But yeah, anyways, those are some of the matchups and just, decks and stuff that I kind of wanted to go over right now. This is what happened at the most recent Smart Series. Thanks so much for all the support on the series as well. If you're interested in competing, make sure to go check out one of the links in the description if you're interested in signing up for future events. But with that being said, thanks for all the support as always. I appreciate it. This is Smart TCG. I'll speak with you guys again soon. Peace out.